Welcome to Roll of the Dice. I'm Dan.
And I am Lee.
Wow, I've been saying your name wrong this entire time, apparently.
Yeah. It's got 17 E's at the end, and then it has little spices, umlaut things at the end that makes it go up another octave.
My name has spices at the end. It's very spicy.
It's so spicy.
Every time you say it, it burns a little.
Oh, definitely burns. They all burn.
Anyway, today's episode, we're talking about creating memorable NPCs.
That's right, man. NPCs are going to be all over the place in your game, either trying to help your players or kill them, or have ulterior motives. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I should expand. NPCs, if you don't know, means non-player characters. So anyone in your game that's not being played by one of the player characters in your group.
That is right. Yeah, sometimes you have all these terminology or abbreviations for things, and I had no idea what NPC stood for. Thank you, Dan. I haven't known for 30 years.
30 years.
It's good to say. Some people don't know, and that's just fine.
Yeah. No, it took me a long time to learn that because I couldn't find a definition for it in the books when I started playing, and I don't know.
For real?
Another player had to explain it to me what it meant.
Interesting. Well, I guess that's true. I mean, if you don't know, sometimes you're afraid to ask because you want to appear that you know everything if you're running a game. Cool.
So what makes a memorable, if I can say that word, NPC?
Memorable. What makes a memorable NPC? Having them, I guess there's many different ways, is making them the comedic sidekick, making them have a characteristic that stands out, an NPC that kills one of your player characters. That can make them pretty memorable, in my opinion. Lots of different things, but I would like to ask you, what stood out, what made a memorable, I can't say it, a memorable NPC for you, Dan?
Ones that stuck out for me were sometimes player characters that became NPCs, and those tend to be memorable because my character was with them for a long time, and then they just became NPCs and were still around.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some emotional tie as far as, character-wise and player character-wise to that NPC. As random NPCs, I don't remember a lot. There was one because it affected my character, and it was in one of your games.
Okay.
I was playing in Deadland, or was it Hell on Earth? It was in Hell on Earth. I was playing the actor.
Oh,
character.
Yes.
And you put us in a town that was the happiest town in the world, living normally, and apparently it was just all a ruse. It was a witch was trying to make this place seem happy and protecting it from the outside world.
Yes.
And I remember that witch because that caused me to retire my character.
Yeah, that was really cool of what you did there, because I think you defeated the witch, but the community still was it was no longer under her control. It was still safe. It had like a dome shield and protective things.
I don't think we defeated the witch.
No?
We confronted her.
Really? Okay.
And she's like, we tried to fight her, and she's like, this is what I'm doing. And we decided that it was better to leave the town protected by her than killing her and releasing them into the realities of the world.
That's right. I was trying to it's all these memories are coming back to me. I think I wanted to have an antagonist that wasn't someone you could defeat, meaning her viewpoint was actually correct. Listen, I'm in control. I have all this power, but I'm actually doing good with it, and everyone here seems to be happy. What's the big deal? And I think that's what happened is everyone's, actually, you're right. I wanted to challenge myself in having someone that you just didn't go and kill. And
all the other characters decided just to leave her alone and leave. And my character, being an actor, was famous in certain movies, and in this town, they were still playing his movies, and everyone loved him. And it was like his perfect place was this town.
Yeah.
And so everyone else is leaving, and he's like, I just can't leave. I can't leave this town, and I have to stay.
Yep. Like, what's the point? I'm staying. Bye, everyone. Yeah. And then you had to make a new character. Yeah. That was really cool.
Yeah. That was an NPC that I will probably always remember.
Awesome. Take that, Jim. I'm always against Jim.
Everyone's gonna be like, "Who's this Jim?
Who's this Jim guy?" I think we should get Jim on an episode, or if possible.
We'll have to.
Basically, why I say that is I see Jim as the best GM, and because you met him in college and I met him through you, And he introduced us to Deadlands again, which is a big part of our group of friends. He expanded my creativity, my little brain into bigger and better things. And so I feel that he's the master and I'm the lowly pupil, and I must take him over and be
Well, I think he
better.
advanced everyone that we know further into the world of role playing.
Yes, before it was just hack and slash, you get the loot, who cares? Oh no, we're talking about actual role playing here. So getting into it more, getting to characters, and yeah, I think,
Yeah.
and that's why I hold Jim in a high. I put him on a pedestal, and then I want to knock him off that pedestal.
Just gonna knock it out from under him and take it over.
Yeah, take that. No,
Take that, mentor.
but in general, I really would like to have Jim on this podcast if possible. So going back to creating a memorable. so So going back to creating a memorable NPC, I have one that I got to play against or play was in D&D. We're playing Out of the Abyss, the book adventure, and there's a character called Jim Jar who was a deep gnome and he loved to gamble. And since my character was a bard sorcerer type, randy gambler, talkative guy, he got along with him right off the bat, and they would just hang out as they were trying to get out of the Underdark. Every time they would stop, they would gamble about silly things like who's going to get ambushed by the evil elves that are chasing us, things like that.
So when you were gambling,
Mm-hmm.
you weren't gambling for money. You were gambling for
Well, we were
things
gambling.
to happen.
We were gambling for like a gold piece or something, or sometimes it was just for fun to get a laugh because he was a trickster type of a character. And so was really my character. My character was basically Loki, except not evil. He just loved playing practical jokes or having fun with people. I found out that Jim Jar was actually a god in disguise who actually could help the players later on if they needed them to. And so I thought that was just awesome that I made basically best friends with this crooked, evil type dark gnome, and he was actually a trickster loving God all along, and I thought that was kind of interesting. Oh, and I just realized I spoiled partial ending to Out of the Abyss campaign.
Oh,
Some people
yeah.
might be running
Well, I
that.
didn't play it. I don't know if I'll ever will play it. But
No.
so when you're talking about memorable PCs, you're not always talking about their personality per se. Sometimes you're talking about the way they interact or how
Mhm.
they help or thwart the characters in the story.
Yeah, sometimes maybe they gel correctly into your group. Sometimes you want them to go along with the group, or sometimes it's just a fun one-time interaction, and then you never see that NPC ever again. How do you make one? What I like to do is actually like to people watch and see their mannerisms and how they act, so that way I get an idea in my brain of how this other person's going to act. So maybe you went to the store and the cashier was a really talkative older woman that has some tattoos on her neck. Take a note of that, and then maybe later on you remember this person and you put them into the campaign. So maybe she is a barmaid, and so you have an idea already how this person spoke, what they look like when you describe it to your players. Like, oh, it's this older woman, a little bit heavy set. She looks like she used to party in her youth. She's got a tattoo that has now started to fade on her neck. You're not too sure what it was, but it might look like a heart of some kind. Her hair is red, but it's probably dyed in some way, and it's pulled back into a ponytail so that way you're saying, okay, she doesn't have much time to ready herself. But and then she puts on maybe too much makeup. She's still trying to relive her youth, but she's jovial and jokes with you and loves a dirty joke. So I already made this NPC that you can throw in there. And so when you have a strong idea of this character, and you can paint them with broad strokes. They don't have to necessarily be 2-dimensional people. Just 1-dimensional is fine. You get that way you can role play it and have fun with this silly barmaid that doesn't necessarily like getting pinched in the bottom and will hit you in the face with a frying pan if she needs to. But
When do you start to describe a character in that much detail? And do you know that they're going to be interacting with the characters more than just that one interaction, or do you always bring in NPCs and give a good description of them when there's some interaction
that is really hard
going on?
because sometimes you don't. Yeah, I like to write ahead, and maybe I want to. They're gonna interact with this NPC for sure because I need them to do that for the story. and I'll write it down, and I will usually try to think about maybe someone I encountered or a character on TV. Also, again, as we always say in this podcast, steal someone else's good idea. Why not? So what I did is I took a character from Breaking Bad, Mike the Fixer, and I put him into the game. And so I already knew how he would act and what he looked like. Maybe changed a little bit. I gave him an eye patch and so on. But that way everyone else knows, oh, he looks like this. And I could show him a picture on the internet. He looks like this guy, which is also another good tool is looking online and getting pictures of NPCs so that way they have a good idea what they look like. And actually sometimes you can even go online and Google image search or Pinterest or whatever, characters, and you might develop a story based on what they look like.
I think it's good to start small too with sometimes the same way you start with anything else, I guess, you create for the game. You don't have to develop NPCs that are so thoroughly thought through for every single part of the game. So if you're stealing from a movie, just for an interaction of someone's buying something, you can bring in a character from, a movie or someone you saw at a grocery store and put them in there and kind of have that be the interaction. And then if that character comes back more and more, you can expand on it as you go.
Yes, I love that. Yep. And it also gives you practice. Another theme that we have in this podcast is start small and build upon what you've done.
I also, as a player character, sometimes when the GM overly explains someone, an NPC, and gives so much detail for them, you start to feel that this person is important to the game.
Yeah.
And if it's just a sales interaction and you give all this detail,
then you start thinking,
they might interact differently because they think maybe this is someone integral to the story plot or something like that.
Yeah, and that's true. You just don't necessarily need to give them all this detail. My example, that barmaid, was actually more for you, the GM, to have in the knowledge. Of course, you would just describe her as, she would be strong-headed, older woman, dyed red hair, has a fading tattoo. And that's it. But you know how she acted. You might give her and build upon this character, and she might become a character that your group goes back to. Maybe they like this town, or their mission needs them to be in this town, so they're going to interact with her more and more and get to know. And so you can build, like you said, upon that. But these are social characters. So I mean, that's just a hard thing to do as a GM. Is you have to come up with everybody.
The whole world
is all
yours to create.
The whole world. So you have to think about all these things. Now, I am never going to populate or have an entire list of every NPC that you can encounter. But what you can do is make a list of names, so that way you can come up, if you don't have to think of it on the spot. And then think of attributes like peg leg or blind or surly or overly happy, thief, and so on. And so when you start populating this world, you don't have to describe everyone that's in this world or town or wherever the players are. You could just pick and choose of what you need. And that's why I said remembering people is good and stealing characters is good. And the reason why I say that is players are going to go and do whatever. So like you introduce to a town, well, some are going to go get supplies, some are just going to go gamble, some are going to go to the brothel, whatever. So that way you don't have to already have things written out ahead of time. Like, oh, I have every single store written out. I have every single character who owns that shop, whatever. Because what could be fun is just, all right, you just need to go get supplies. Great. You just do it. You don't have to role play that at all. Unless the story requires you. Maybe the clerk actually has some information. Or the players start asking questions. Okay, now I got to think of an NPC I didn't even plan on. You can go to that list that you have and do that. And that's practice to then come up with fun NPCs that just have a quirk or memorable thing that they have to say. Maybe they're their own catchphrase. I don't know.
Every NPC needs to have his own catchphrase.
Yeah, like, where's Poochie? There, everyone's at. Yeah. Or Wubba Lubba Dub Dub.
Sometimes an action, I think, can be a good descriptor for an NPC. It doesn't have to be a complete
person
development of the character and complete looks description.
No,
but if you're sitting down in a restaurant and the waiter comes up and he puts his foot up on the table to lean on while he's writing your
order,
order, that pretty much describes the person. And, you know, it's
Yep.
like, hey guys, what do you want? And the foot comes up and slams it on the table, just and leans up against it,
Yep.
you
And
know, stretching as he's talking to you.
that's perfect because now you described that as absolutely perfect because now everyone else in the every other player is now visually figuring that out who that person is. Like I already have an idea when you describe that. Yeah, I think of a lanky younger guy. He's basically better than this. He shouldn't even be here as a waiter. He's just doing this because he has to, but he thinks he's better or he's trying too hard and he's compensating. So you have a visual image of what that person looks like, which is perfect. That's a cool example.
Yeah. And then you can release little bits here and there as you interact too. So it's okay, I think, for, you know, being quick and saying this is the character and this is what they look like,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting into it. But sometimes as a player character, it's fun to as they say, role play it out.
Yeah.
You know, the guy walks up, does this, you're like, hey, take your foot off the table. He's like, oh, sorry, I
Oh,
just, you know.
sorry. This is just how I do it. Everyone else likes me when I do it. But that's something difficult because every GM has their own type of role playing. Some people just can't come up with an NPC like that. So sometimes you just really have to come out and have an actual list and plan it all out. That's fine, and that's really difficult for me. I don't know. I can't do that. I feel like it's a waste because sometimes you have this whole list and idea of who populates this town, and the characters just go in, they get food, and then they leave. Of course, you can take that list and you can take those people and add them onto the next thing, incorporate them later on so they're not wasted. But that's a lot of time and energy that can be used in other parts of the adventure in the storyline.
Yeah.
So
There's definitely
Yeah,
certain times that you want to pull that in and not try to do it all the time.
yeah, all the time.
You still want to kind of do it more when it's story appropriate and
Mm-hmm.
story advancing.
But now, okay, we've been just talking about NPCs that you're talking about socially and maybe actually help you along your story path or whatever, your adventure. But let's talk about NPCs that you maybe have to fight against. And making them memorable during a fight is fun too. Different things. So yeah, giving them what they like to do. So maybe one guy's constantly smoking a cigar and playing it, or maybe it's not even lit and he's just playing around with it in his mouth all the time. Giving them little quirks. Yeah, one has a limp, so or one has a robot arm or leg, and he's always playing with his buzzsaw and cutting things. Like he's got the clamps. He always wants to clamp everything.
I've got the clamps.
I gotta clamp you so bad. Yeah, and stealing from other bad guys, having them as a group, and maybe they're a silly group, like a silly gang of some kind. They're like the wet banditos. I don't know. And they always use too much hair gel, so they're always covered in soul glow, and they always have to dress a certain way. So that could be fun and something memorable. That they dance fight. And again, I mean, we're ranging games that are silly to serious games. So just add in little quirks is fun.
What was I going to say now? You lost me with the dance fighting.
No, dance fighting. That's dangerous. You're distracted. Like, I mean, they look silly, but man, that they practice. They go to workshops. They choreograph together. I mean, they're in sync. Oh, I'm stabbed. I'm dead.
As a player, it's okay to give NPCs something that seems contrived or used before, or in movies, you know, it's like, oh, they're this stereotypical villain.
It's fine.
It's okay to give them a stereotypical quirk.
Yep.
That villains have. It's just kind of introduction and starts them on their development by giving them a quirk, and you can build on it or expand on other areas later.
Yeah, that's perfect because you just have this guy's just a low-level thug. Why is he a thug? Because he likes being a thug. Okay. And then maybe he doesn't survive that encounter. Whatever. Or maybe they start talking to the person. Now you realize, oh, I'm a thug because I needed such and such thing. I need money for my family that's starving. I have no choice. But most of the time, keep it simple.
Yeah. You don't want to do an introduction of an NPC in the first battle and they're not supposed to survive. And you're like, here's my backstory.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about how I have a family and I want to save them. And while you're killing me the first time we met.
Yeah. And another good thing to keep it memorable is don't introduce too many NPCs by describing them too much. If it's just that waiter that has his leg on the table, great, he comes and goes. But now this other NPC that's actually important to your story comes in and sits down at your table and starts talking, saying, "Ah, you're late," and you don't even know who this person is. I mean, that gives you an idea of he just sat down right away, had a gruff voice, and said, and already accused you of being late. And you're like, who are you?
And it's good that you could use your first non-fully developed NPC. So the guy puts his foot on the table and stuff, interacts with the characters, and then this guy comes in, and the way he interacts with your other NPC that you kind of created,
Yeah.
but this guy's more developed, the way he interacts automatically sets off who he is, and gives the player characters a good description of his personality.
Yep. Shows what he is. And it makes the person in charge of the GM have to talk to himself sometimes, or herself sometimes, which I've had to do, which is strange, but it happens. It happens sometimes where you're literally talking to yourself.
That might be another podcast, how to talk to yourself.
Oh, geez. Avoid it at all costs. There, end of episode.
End of podcast.
Try to avoid it at all costs. Could be. But we have this NPC that we developed, and we want this NPC to stick around with the heroes, because this NPC has some information maybe that is vital for the heroes to go on their quest, or actually has to go along with them because they are the guide. They're the ones like, you need to get through the jungles. I'm the only one that knows how to do that. You got to follow me and listen to what I say. Maybe none of your characters have any experience in the jungle. Maybe they're all city folk or whatnot, and you can have this person there to help them out. An example could be, you had all your players make their characters, and you're having them in your story, they have to go through the jungle to get to where they need to go. But none of the players, even though you asked them, hey, could you put survival down? You're like, no, I want to, I don't, I want to be good at gambling. And you're like, well, you're not going to be in your head. Oh, you're not going to be gambling in the jungle. All right, but that's your character you want to make. I understand. So
everyone else will have survival. I'll just live off them.
Yeah, exactly. And then some people think that way. And then you get together and nobody's got that one skill, let's just say survival in this case, that they need to go through this jungle. So now you have to make an NPC to be along with the group. So now this NPC is trudging along the expedition through the jungle with you. And now you start encountering bad things that are trying to kill you, monsters or other people. I tend to try not to have these NPCs roll in combat too much, unless they absolutely need to, or just say that they are off to the side fighting their own monster. Don't worry about them; they'll be fine, and not so that way you're not having to roll the NPC character along with all the monsters that you're running as well.
Yeah, I think that takes away sometimes when you have to spend a lot of time,
Yeah,
saying what's happening to the NPC in a battle.
Yep.
And rolling for him, and you're rolling, and it just takes time. It takes things away from the game, from the player characters. You can just describe what's happening and what they're doing.
And that goes with talking amongst yourself. You're rolling against yourself. This NPC is rolling against the monsters that everyone's fighting. So the player characters are just sitting there waiting. All right, are you done rolling against nothing? Sometimes it's unavoidable, but it happens. And another bad thing is sometimes that NPC that maybe you built is pretty cool and actually has some really cool skills and does something awesome. Well, that's taken away from the players doing something awesome. It's hard to do. But sometimes, and this happens, is everyone in the party loves that NPC. They're like, you're the best, you're cool, we're going to take you on all our adventures. All right, well then that's fine. If everyone likes this character and is cool with them fighting along and helping you out because everyone in the party got injured and now the NPC has to really step in, that's fine too.
I like the fact of NPC that even though you want him to be with you all the time, he has his own agenda and goes somewhere else. He doesn't come with you.
Ooh, and
it's like, nope, I have something else to do.
And that can be something fun too, is having an NPC in your group that actually isn't your friend. They have ulterior motives. They're leading you through the jungle to go somewhere else that they need you to go to do something, either nefarious or not, but that's a different podcast story idea.
You know, if an NPC is with you all the time and is doing the story progression for you, it takes away from the game. You know, as a player, I don't want an NPC to be with me all the time. That's going to take away or do things for me that advances the story.
Yep. Don't let the NPC be the only one that has the main vendetta against the antagonist, and actually then is the only one that can kill the main bad guy. That's silly. So like, then why are the players there if it's the NPC's job to kill the bad guy? Who cares? Yeah, don't try to do something like that. I guess that would be memorable though, as an NPC technically. We played this whole campaign, and then the NPC was the only one that could kill the main bad guy. Oh, well, I remember
Yeah.
that for having a crappy ending.
Most of the time that comes to play when the GM wants to be playing instead of GMing. They'll create a character for themselves and pull it in.
Why, Dan, I've never done anything like that. I got into a big habit of making NPCs detailed, so then I would be running a character because, like I said, I never get to play or rarely get to play, especially in the past. So I would make a character NPC and have just like anyone else. So they have a complete character stats and everything and background, and I would play them along.
Yeah, most of the time they would disappear
Yes,
on the main integral things or only come back if we were
lost,
dying.
dying. Yeah, and that's a great thing. Is yeah. Oh, I'll be over here if you need me. I'll be at the bar drinking. So you tell me when you want me to come along, and I'll come along. And and then the hero's getting into trouble, and he just shows up. I knew you would get in trouble. Here I am to help you out. Which is silly, but it's also fun if it works.
Yeah, if you don't want to kill the characters in a bar
Yes,
fight.
or whatever. Yes, whatever you've thought up for them. But so let's review on what makes a memorable NPC.
Well, it sounds like it doesn't necessarily have to be a fully developed NPC that's always there.
Yep.
Seems like NPCs are memorable if they are just a little more interesting or a little more descriptive.
Give them one interesting quirk that they have, ability of some kind maybe, but don't think about too much unless they get attached to the party.
And don't let them get too attached.
Because that NPC might go away. So a good tip to make one is steal, obviously, from TV shows and movies and characters that you like in there. Throw them in there into the game. People that you know, people that you just met, they seem interesting to you. Maybe you only met them once. Take those characteristics and throw them in and make them an NPC. Boom. That's the end of this podcast.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. You know what sounds like a plan? Sending us a question or getting a hold of us. You can do that. rollofthedice@gmail.com or Facebook @rollofthedice.
And remember, keep shaking those dice, and may your roll be true.